I really loved it. And when I was reading it, I was like thinking, oh my gosh, her writing style is a lot like, have you ever read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna?
Yes, Kristen Hanna.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that story.
I
Well, I mean,
love
that's
that
like,
book.
yeah, bad, but like good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really sad, and it's like over a kind of like, a sad time in history, but beautiful writing. And
Right.
I saw that kind of reminiscent in your own work with your latest book and everything. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited to chat about that today. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
For people that do not really know who you are, can you just introduce
Yeah.
yourself and introduce your books?
Alrighty, so I am Ellison Lane. I am a former teacher. I have 2 kids that I stay home with now, and I have been getting back into the school doing substitute teaching. So I do elementary, middle school, high school,
Cool.
and so that's kind of fun too, just to kind of do something else than just being at home. So I'm kind of a stay-at-home mom, dairy farm wife, substitute teacher, kid wrangler. So I do that. And then I love reading, and that kind of spurred writing about 8 years ago when I was pregnant with my son. It's kind of probably the most busiest time of, someone's life is like having a baby and trying to deal with all that and everything going through my head. I'm just like, all right, let me get this out. So a lot of it just kind of comes from little pieces of a love story, and then it grows into this huge encompassing project of a book. But yeah, so that's kind of fun. And I'm very interested in the World War II era. First, it really wasn't that long ago, like you think about that, and like my grandparents were alive then. And so I wanted to give that a try. And I chose Italy for my grandpa. And it was kind of one of those things where there's so many parts of World War II
so many
to dive into.
I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, and like I'm interested in it. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I love, historical fiction and historical romance and stuff. So yeah, it was a different kind of research. It was slow going because everything, like, okay, is there indoor electricity? Is there indoor plumbing in Salerno, Italy in 1943 in this little country house? Like, I don't know this. And does the internet even know this? I don't know. So just kind of trudge through it and go back and edit a bunch of times. And I asked my grandma a lot of things, especially about like the girls. And she said it's, when they're together, they're going steady, or, they wouldn't wear eyeliner, but they would maybe wear mascara, and, what their dresses were called. And one point I had something in a marker, and she's like, there weren't markers, it was a pencil. Like, you would just use a pencil. And things like that, or bags, just these tiny little details in the book. And it's like, or how they did their hair. Like, was it a hair tie? Was it a ribbon, bobby pins? So grandma came to the rescue on that a lot, and she kind of used it a little bit as, way my grandfather had just passed away, and I was working on this. And so I was sending her in an email chapter by chapter. So she got the raw ideas chapter by chapter. And so she really liked that. It was kind of a good little healing process for her and her crazy, changes in her life. And so that's kind of where I landed in Italy. And then World War II is just
that's so cool,
takes over the whole world. So
So did your family history, and in your family history, is there Italian ancestry too then?
Yeah, so my great grandparents, so my grandpa grew up, and there was the 3 boys in the family, and his parents both had immigrated from Italy in the early 1900s. So I have like Ellis Island records that actually show their names and their ships. And I think at the very, very end of the book, in the author's notes, I think I put a little something in there just saying about how they had come over and where they sailed from and how long, ago it was.
That is
and
so cool.
So it was a fun little, it was a giant project, but it was a fun way to start it, because I would never put myself in Poland in World War II. I always just feel like that's such horrible, freezing cold conditions on top of everything else that these, people are trying to survive. then being freezing, I just, I read a lot about that and I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
want to go to Poland. So I thought Italy, kind of got the Amalfi Coast background and
Yeah.
so
Oh, it's so
made it
beautiful
pretty
there.
anyway.
I haven't been, but I want to go
I
someday. It's
need to.
beautiful.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
So
it's so beautiful, I've heard. And
yeah.
photos and oh man. Yeah, no, I really
Mhm.
felt like I was there too. So you did a really good job with the research and the
Yeah.
time period too. I just felt like I was there, and
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to read a book and be able to transport yourself to another world, another time, another
Right.
place. And so that was really fun. And your characters were very lovable too.
Yes, I always love my male characters so much, and I hate to take that away from my female characters, but like
Right.
I end up loving them so much. They really, I'm just one of those, my husband would say, like, oh my gosh, you just love everyone. And like, well, no, like I really do. Like I have like these, yeah, it's just I create my male characters based off of, a lot of things. And
Yeah.
yeah, Chet just I don't know, he's like,
He's
yeah, my
perfect.
book boyfriend, you have a
Yeah.
couple of those, but all my male characters I always like fall in love with in that way.
Right.
And just even the little details. I know it rains one day when they're, towards the beginning of the book in Italy, and it was a rainy day because all the war documents that I was reading, this was a rainy day.
Yeah.
And even down to like the phases of the moon. So like if I ever say like, oh, it was a full moon or this, that, like that's actually true. So like that's how crazy I am about my research.
Oh, cool.
Like,
well, that is
I
really
stop
cool.
a lot and do research. Like, wait, what was the moon phase today? Back in the 1940s. So.
Well, that's great though, because you know what, I still remember when my grandma, so she lived like during that time too. So she lived on the prairies of North Dakota, and she was always telling us stories about when she was little and stuff. And she had mentioned how, like she was reading this book about, it was like I think a romance book where they were talking about putting milk under a barrel underneath the wagon to make cream. And she's like,
yeah.
it's not done exactly like that, but like, and it bothered her so badly she put the book down. So it's really great when you have that research and like you pulled from real life research and you pulled from, online and records and books. Like, so you did your research and you could tell like how you read it. It was really good. So,
and I will read nonfiction World War II stuff. My favorite is Into the Blue by Stephen Ambrose, and that's like World War like fighter pilots, in the wings of these things. It's crazy. Like my husband's getting so annoyed with me because I kept like telling him all the information. And so I love that, but I know also some readers who are going to grab the book don't want all of that. And that's what I did take. And I threw it in my author's note at the end, just in case some people want more or a little bit more explanation, because I can't like bog down the narrative with all of that. So yeah, it was super fun and slow going. And I do some more contemporary ones. Some of my other ones are, and then I have another idea in my head. It's going to be in the 30s, and I have to like gear up for
fun.
Lots of research. So no,
have you started writing that one?
Not that one. I have 3 published, and then I have 3 more that are done on my computer, and then that's going to be like the 7th one. And I like accidentally start writing books. Like I was in the middle of pushing out this release, and I had like this weird like amount of time where it's like I don't really have anything to do, and so then I accidentally wrote a whole nother manuscript, which was great, but it's all like living in your head, and you just have to get it out, and it just came out in 60,000 words. So it's done. Yeah. So that one will be. Once I kind of get everything else organized, I have the idea, but like it's not active in my mind right now, like which is a good thing. So
my goodness, that's so exciting.
I have 3 out right now. Yeah. And so the other one is We Have July, and this one is like a nostalgic romance kind of. It happens in 1991 in Wisconsin. So it's before like technology and social media and stuff. I was just like a little kindergartner, but like this is Persian Gulf War. So like Operation Desert Storm. That's what I remember being really little. That was like the first big thing that was going on. And so that's where that takes place. And he is an injured airman, Air Force airman, and he comes home. They're not all military, but like I just love that. So I'm glad my husband isn't doing that, but like I do kind of love that. So he comes home with an injury, and so they have, it's again called We Have July. They have a couple months, but then that's where they kind of meet and so he's like a bad boy, she's a good girl.
Cute.
But yeah, it takes place in rural Wisconsin too, so that's kind of fun.
That's cute.
And then this is from now until September, and it is like a young adult. They're in college age, and so they actually go to my alma mater, which is UW Whitewater in Wisconsin. And so kind of knew that background, but he's a football player and he has a medical condition that he's not telling his new girlfriend about, and like a looming summer surgery, blah, blah, blah. So, but that I have to stop talking about them because
sure, no problem.
I'll end up spilling some beans and then I won't be able to pick them back up. So.
Yeah. Oh gosh, they sound really good. Oh my word.
Yeah.
And so the next one that you're going to be publishing, do you have a published date for the next one? And can you share?
I am going to aim for winter. I'm thinking maybe January, just to kind of, I know Christmas time gets all crazy. I'm going to see what I can do. It's done. It's going through phases of, beta readers and ideas and stuff. It is called My Way Home. And that's kind of like Malibu, fancy girl, and then like a construction worker guy. And so it kind of time warps 10 years. So they know each other when they're, in their teens-ish, and then 10 years kind of go. And so it's kind of like, Gwen Stefani and Blake Shelton, like two complete, opposites. And so that takes place in Wisconsin as well. And like, I know my husband's just like, you're crazy. I'm like, I know, it's so great. But that one is a contemporary romance. And then, so I'm hoping it's done. But it's just
trying to figure out when it's going to come out, right?
Yeah. And so, like I said, like with the kids, they'll be back in school in September. Yeah. And I'll have a little bit more alone time. I don't have any alone time now, so I always have to lock them outside. So
right. Okay. You're outside, but kids are going outside. Yeah.
They get on the bus, go to school for, the day. And then I have a little bit, a couple hours in the afternoon to kind of so hopefully I'm aiming for, just the very beginning of 2023 for that one.
Oh, wonderful.
So, okay, and then keep chugging along with other ones.
Right.
Other ones too.
That is so exciting. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm just enjoying this chat, getting to know you more and about your book. What made you decide to go the indie route?
So that was a sad story. I entered We Have July into a writing contest held by, not going to say, but a small publisher. And it won, and he offered me a publishing contract. And so we went through all the paces on that, and things were not going well, like in the whole publication pipeline. Like it would be months when I wouldn't hear anything. I wouldn't have a release date. I mean, there was just all these red flags everywhere. But as someone who's like, oh, please publish my book, and I'm a perfectionist and I like, things in order. And it was very, very stressful. And I had another author through that publisher reach out to me and say like, hey, how's everything going? And her entire world was collapsing around her book as well. I pushed and my book got put on pre-order, which was like, all right, finally, we're getting somewhere. It hadn't even come back from the editor yet. So in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is not.
Oh boy.
They ended up closing their doors because a huge group of us all left. These authors were all kind of talking.
Everyone was mad.
It's happening. So we all left, and then I had to, terminate my contract, blah, blah, blah. It was already on pre-order. So I wanted to go forth with it. And so I did it all myself. I rushed and got it done in a month, put everything together, all of the editing and proofing and the cover and formatting.
I'm sure you were so stressed out. Oh my word.
It was crazy because then too, he had all my pre-order people's money. Like, I mean, it was all the behind the scenes stuff too that was just a disaster. So like me getting my book together, I'm like, I want this to happen because I was so excited and promoting it. And now all of a sudden it doesn't happen. Like you can't take that from me. You can't steal that from me. So I made it happen. And with my other ones too, I'm like, all right, like I can just do this. And I do query out a little bit. And I have a young adult or, like a high school age one that I'm interested in kind of doing, trying to get a different publisher to look at. But at this point,
to be hybrid.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, if these ones are good to go, then I can do what I need to do because so many of those small publishers, I mean, I would be doing my publicity and promotions and marketing myself anyway. So, and I'm such a perfectionist. Like I said, I like to kind of have control, or at least know what's going on, where if I'm left in the dark for too long, then things
Right.
start
You start
bothering me and I'm
worrying and
worried
you
about
start
it.
thinking what the heck's going on and like
Yeah.
all that. Yeah, I get
No,
that.
so I'm not completely like cut off from, doing a traditional publisher or
Yeah.
whatever, but like I said, with the kids and all the other things going on, these books aren't going anywhere, and I
Yeah.
can always save one on the side if I think that one's super special for a certain reason that I want to try a
Right.
different avenue. But yeah, for right now it's working. They all kind of work together because, you read one and you want to grab the other one and
Yep.
stuff like that. So that's kind of a fun little thing, and I'm having fun
Awesome.
with it. So I guess that's
Yeah.
better than the alternative where it all
Right.
started. So
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I'm super happy that you're enjoying it and you love it and you have
yeah,
that control. I feel like as a perfectionist too, you like, if one great thing about it is like if someone finds a typo or something in the book,
right.
they can tell you and you can be like, oh, I can go change that.
Please do. I feel like that's such a taboo thing because it's like I'll read books and like I'm the person who
Oh,
circles them and then sends them back to the library like that. But I do want to know, and that's what one of my ARC readers had sent back a couple, and I'm like, thank you, because I've read it 12 times. Like
right.
I'll be like, you have to tell
It's
me, and then I
easy to
can easily
miss
fix
them,
it.
like
Yeah,
if
no,
you
so I
read it
love that.
thousands
That's
of times. Yeah. Oh my word. Yeah.
yep, yep.
I completely get that. So, oh man, so good. Okay. And then let's see here. What is your typical writing/work day look like?
Yeah.
'Cause I know you're a busy mom
It's so
and a busy
crazy.
everything else. So how do you do it?
Well, the first thing is for anyone who's like, I don't have time to write. It all has to start like in your head. And I do so much thinking throughout the day. When I can't
Yeah.
be typing on my computer, I'm thinking about what I just wrote, things that need to maybe get changed, or where I'm going, or what I'm going to write. So it's all right there, which leaves me with a lot of scrap pieces of paper everywhere, and which is fine. But lots of times when I'm milking cows, that's a good time for me just to kind of be thinking about things. And then I have to think, oh no, I got to go back and fix that because I don't want to know that now. I want
Yep.
to know that, in, I don't know,
Later.
5 chapters. So it's all that thinking time. That really helps me because when I sit down, I can actually just go and fix things or actually type. So,
Okay.
like I said, with the kids, it used to be nap time. Kids would go take their naps, and my son napped, until he was like 5, which was
Okay.
crazy. And then my daughter, she would go down or have quiet time or whatever. But when they're at school now, it's like, yeah, I kind of get all my housework done. And then if
Yep.
I can get like an hour even is good, because I just go crazy. I just type, get it all out there, even if it's, sloppy and a disaster, because later I can kind of think about it. So I
Right.
have the kids call it my powder room, and it's just kind of like my big walk-in closet room, but then I have like
Yep.
my makeup desk there as well, and that's where my
Oh.
computer is. So mommy's in her powder room, like I'm
Oh,
probably
cute.
funny because it's like a closet basically, but yeah, it's big enough, so that's my little nook to kind of write in. But yeah,
Yep.
taking notes and compiling stuff, and yeah, just kind of going at it when I can. And sometimes it's only, an hour a day.
Okay.
Other times,
Cool.
if they're, doing their thing, or if they're at school, then yeah, I just go and go until someone bothers me.
Wonderful. So are
Yeah.
you a plotter or a pantser?
I used to be a pantser because I just wrote. So
Yeah.
like this one was like my first novel I ever wrote, and I've gone through it many, many, many times again.
Yep.
But I just wrote it because I had this little, it started with like this little dream, and
Yep.
that exploded into, the whole book. And that one I just kind of did. And it doesn't necessarily follow the traditional, path of a romance novel. And then
Right.
actually for We Have July was kind of the same too. I just kind of went with it.
Yep.
And I kind of have a little tiny idea, and then I go with it. Lately, I've been outlining. So the last
Okay.
couple manuscripts that I've written, I've kind of outlined it a little bit more.
Mhm.
I think also because it's in my head, and so I need to get it out of there.
Yep.
So that kind of helps. So I think I'm like kind of a borderline between two. I'm
Yeah.
a recovering pantser, but like I, still kind of do that on the weekends,
Yep.
but yeah, so it's kind of a fun little, you never really know what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I like the little twist in there because I didn't even know
Yeah.
they were coming when I started. So you
Right.
read the twist when I didn't even know they were going to happen either.
Right.
So.
Oh, isn't that the best kind of twist that happens where you're like sitting there and like, oh my gosh, what
Mhm.
if? And it's
That
like,
could totally, yeah, or it actually links up perfectly because I was thinking some way
yeah.
and like, well, yeah, that,
Oh,
hits
that's
all
the best.
the right notes and we're good to go. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of
Oh,
a fun
that's
little
so funny. I
the
love that. I
craziness.
love that. So when you sit down to write, are you normally the type that like writes a lot and then comes back and edits it and makes it good? And then like, because for me, I'm the type of person that like write a lot, and
Yep.
it's really not that good. It's not that good at first. And then I go back and I put more words in and I rearrange it.
Right.
Or are you the type of person that takes a long time to write it and you write it really well and then you don't have to do as much edits?
Right. I feel like I like it to look neat. And
Yeah.
sometimes I will do like a scene. So I don't do like chapters. I mean, I do chapters, but like when I'm writing,
Yeah.
I have this scene in my head. Some scenes are 5 chapters, some scenes are 2 chapters. You know,
Yeah.
it just kind of depends. So when I get that scene kind of done and we're ready to move on to like the next, scene, I kind
Mhm.
of go back and then I dig through that a little bit more. So I just kind of type like crazy. I do use my punctuation and all of
Mhm.
that. And I
Yep.
try to keep it, neat and tidy. But while it's all fresh in my head, and sometimes, you think of new things or, okay,
Right.
I need to go back and do some more describing of things because
Right.
and like you said, like, I don't want to stay just on the surface. I like to be a little bit more literary or say
Right.
like upmarket fiction, not just, the commercial fiction. So I have to
Yep.
go back and add those things in there or slow myself down a
Yeah.
little and pick up those details. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like to go back, like, all right, I'm going to go back 3 chapters and today I'm just reading. And then I leave notes at the bottom of like, okay, this is next, this is next, this is next. So when I sit down, when I can sit down, I see where I was aiming.
Yeah.
So
And where you
yeah,
need to add something or do something. So yeah, I'm kind of the same where it's like,
yep,
need to go through it a few times. It's like, okay, here I need to add more comedy. And the next time I go through it, I'm like, I need to
yeah,
add more description or yeah,
right.
it's a crazy process, isn't it?
Yeah. Nope, and it never kind of ends. And that's why I try not to pick up my books again because it's like, oh gosh, like I would pull things aside from just like the grammar and all those little,
Oh,
finicky things. But yeah, it's
yep.
just like I try to just ignore the rest of them.
Oh
I
man.
can't read these again for a
Right.
while. I'm happy with them. There's not like errors, but like
Yeah.
it's just me being like, oh, well,
An
where did this
artist,
or add
you
this?
see things and then it's like,
Yeah.
an artist's work is never done, right? Where you feel
Right.
like, the longer you look at your artwork, you're gonna think, oh, that could be better. This could be better. This could be better, and
Right.
it's good as it is, but you
Yeah.
constantly want to improve.
And I redid the back cover of this one because it was
Oh,
driving me
cool.
crazy. And so I just chalked that up as the 1 year anniversary. It got a new back cover because
Oh,
it was
cool.
the image, it just wasn't working for me and
Yep.
how it was set up. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's just, and it's very, very similar, but now it's perfect.
It's
So
perfect. That's great. That's great. Sometimes you need to do that.
yeah, it makes me feel better. Then I don't have to be like, oh, this
What
back,
do you say is the most difficult thing about being a writer slash running your own publishing company?
Right. Yeah. It's the perfectionist side, I think, is a lot of it. And then also like getting out there and finding people, finding that community. So mine are all considered sweet romance because
Okay.
number one, I'm a teacher at school. And so if those high school girls catch wind, which they have, that I have books, which is fine, but it's
Yeah.
like embarrassing. Like that's still my
Right.
problem. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I wrote those, but I don't want it to be something that like they can't read or I'm embarrassed of. And the same thing, I
Right.
want my grandma to be able to read without like, oh, skipping some pages. So
Yes.
the whole sweet genre is a little different than the contemporary or rom-com
Yeah.
genre. And I read all of those. I just don't want to write those scenes. We kind of fade to
Right.
black and we just kind of say it's
Yeah.
edgy. There's different things going on. It's not like clean or Christian. It's more
Right.
edgy, sweet. But and I think that's a little difficult too, to just be seen and then have people. It's kind of like Nicholas Sparks. I think that's
Yeah.
how, when I'm at the farmers market, I have a booth there, and that's kind of how I describe it, because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm like Nicholas Sparks, but many people know his book, so it's the easiest
Right.
kind of like just
Yeah.
name drop, like if you like his, you'll like this, you know what I
Yes.
mean? So and
Yes.
actually his characters are really his male characters, that's kind of how he develops it too, probably just because he is a man and that's how his
Right.
characters come. But I feel like my boys kind of, take over my book, which is fine with me. But
Which is fine. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I
they're
think just getting
great.
everything published and being a perfectionist and,
Yep.
checking for errors, I go through and then I get a galley copy and I go through every single one. And
Yeah.
it's just the perfectionist side of me is like my own worst enemy. And then also just finding
Mhm.
readers.
Oh,
So
sure.
I think it would be helpful to have, and my budget is that's very minimal. Like I
Yep.
can't just go and pay people to do all
Right.
of this stuff for me. So I think that's probably the biggest
The biggest area is
problem,
that.
hurdle. Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay, that's completely understandable. Yeah. Hey, so you were talking a little bit about doing your farmers market. And so what is your process with
Yeah.
that? Has that been good and everything? And what other marketing
Mhm.
things have been helpful for you?
Yeah. So I was going to try to figure out a mailer to send to like bookstores and libraries. And I had done that when I just had one book out. So We Have July was the first one. And so I
Yep.
kind of did that. And then now I have three, and then four's coming soon. So I think I'm going to pause on that. And then I'm going to send maybe like postcards out. I feel like emails
Awesome.
either A, just get thrown in spam, or people don't get them, and they're free, which is
Oh,
great. But it takes a lot of time gathering all that information and sending it, the right
yeah.
person. And I did that, and I don't know if that really worked, but I'm gonna wait till I have four, and then I can put it on a card, and then you've kind of got the package deal there and get that sent out. I do have a local bookstore who has some of my books there, and so that's kind of fun. And I need to work on more of that
Awesome.
once the kids go back to school, and I can kind of bop around a little bit and do a little personal I don't know, bookstore
Book
drop in.
signing
So
type thing.
yeah, so that'll be my next step. Like I said, once I have my cover for my next one, I can kind of do all four of them together. From there, I've been doing the farmers market, and the town I live in is tiny. It's unincorporated. It's like we have our great school, but like it's very
Cool.
small. The next town over is like 11,000 people,
Okay.
so big for us, but like not really big.
Yeah.
But and my husband says, I did not think this was going to work, and it's great. I go on Saturdays and some Wednesdays.
Oh,
Wednesdays are a
good.
little bit slower, but Saturdays, and I feel like these people like to see me,
Yeah.
you're a local author. And some of them are probably just like, oh, I want to buy your book because you're a local author. But like
Oh, that's
actually
so
talking
cool.
to them, I have people come back and say, all right, I'm ready for the next one. Or that was so great.
Ah,
Like, here's the next
yeah.
one. And I had this sweet old lady came in. She had read the first two. And then this is like they're like in college. And I did not want to sell her on that because I was like, I feel bad. Like, you're like, she totally could read it. She's just like, oh,
Yeah.
well, when's the next one coming? I'm like, I know, I don't want to spoil Grant. Like, it's just funny. So anyways,
Yeah.
but I did good there because I can see and talk to people, and they're
Yeah.
come by from school, like the younger kids, and I say all mine are PG-13, if not,
Yeah.
they don't really get worse than
Yeah.
that. And so that's kind of a fun thing to actually see and talk to people. And I feel like you get that one-on-one where you're just on Amazon. So who are the people that you're marketing to? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that's been a good thing, and it's time consuming, but yeah, it's kind of fun. And so I also have
Cool.
little beeswax candles that I make and sell at my booth too.
How
And
cute.
yeah,
That's
so it's
awesome.
it's a fun thing for the summer, and it'll kind of go into fall. And I have a library event coming up too. It's a library in another town over here. Um,
Cool.
they're gonna do it's all local authors. So the people who are coming are readers in general, because you
Yeah.
kind of get that at the farmers market. Not everyone reads, so
Yeah.
people just walk by, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that'll be
That's
fun.
so
And
cool.
yeah, I have another like a Christmas in August market, and that's at like a senior citizen center in
Oh,
about an
cool.
hour from here where we used to live. And so I'll kind of do some of those. I think the personal or the face to face, I am the author. So many people say you're
Yeah.
the author. I'm like, yep, these are my babies. Like,
That's me.
this is my booth. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So
Very
it's fun.
cool.
Mhm.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. I've been thinking about doing one sometime when my books are out,
Yep.
and everything, but that's really cool.
You have to
Uh,
keep a stock of books. Like I just ordered 20 more of each of them from Amazon because I'm always like, all right, just 10 more. And then it's
yeah.
like, they're gone. Or like I like to bring 10 with me of each. And
Okay.
it's like I have none left at home. And so I mean I always have plenty, but like that's the only tricky thing is like, all right, I don't want to be
Having that
stuck at the end of
stock,
the
right?
season.
Yeah.
But yeah, some days I'll come home and I only have two of one of my books left, and I'm like, gotta order more.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that freaks you out a little bit, especially if it's like coming up soon and whatnot, right?
Yeah, and that's what part of it is like, yeah, I kind of need to know because Amazon is not fast about that. Like, if you're going to
Oh,
order
they
more
aren't.
books,
Yeah.
they're just going to take their sweet time. But I like to have plenty of them out on my table. And the one
Yep.
day I had only had two left. I'm like, this
Oh,
looks
no.
really bad, but that's a good thing. But it
Yep.
looks really bad. I'm like, oh, there's
Yeah.
only two.
Only
So
2 of these. Here you go. Yeah. Oh, that is so funny. Oh my word.
yeah.
I love that. And since so we
Mhm.
just talked about like the most difficult thing, what would you say is the most precious thing to you as a writer and being able to do this as a like as your income slash side
Yeah.
hustle as what you love?
Oh
What do you love
yeah.
about it?
Yeah. And I think it's a solo project,
Yeah.
and I like to just kind of, I'm always been kind of an introvert. I like doing things by myself, but like it's my little stories. I think that's like the best thing, is because it all started like this big. Like my husband gets up really early in the morning. So like at like 4:45, his alarms are going off to go and milk the cows for the morning. And so that kind of weird sleep that I get after he leaves, it's kind of like you can remember those dreams.
Yeah.
So it's those tiny little things that spark something. And so that's kind of fun, because it might just be this little piece. And that's what this other accidental book that I started writing, I'm like, oh my gosh, like poof. And then it, becomes 60
Yeah.
some thousand words. But I think that's, I like to read those love stories, and I don't want them to be too lovey, but like I've
Yeah.
had lots of guys read them too, or even like the neighbor farmer guy was reading his when he was waiting in the grain cart, like,
Oh,
combining corn, because his wife said, oh yeah, he read it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like someone had it out in their hunting blinds, like one of these guys, like
wow.
give it to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are, but it's just funny because like,
Yeah.
and my boy cousins read it and stuff, but they're my
Yeah.
cousins though too. So
Yeah.
I think that's fun, is just the little story, because I always have some little, I like to like match make, and like I'm just like a romantic person anyways, and
Same.
yeah, all of that, I don't know. So I think that's just being able to tell my stories and share it with people, and then have people like, oh, I loved it. I'm like, yay, me too. Like I'm, it's like a
Yeah.
little, it's like a little part of your heart on the pages, and yeah.
Right. Oh my
So that's
gosh.
my most favorite part. And even if,
Oh,
and I started writing them just because I thought my kids can read them someday. Like they just started on my
yeah.
shelf. These are all like my old ones. Like they all come in many versions,
Oh,
and they're just,
cool.
edition 1, 2, 3, 4, and then here's the published one. So
Yeah.
covers go through changes and stuff. And I originally just wanted like, my daughter can read them when she grows up. They're kind of
Right.
fun. Or, oh, this here grandma wrote this. So
Yeah, exactly. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Well, that's great. It's just like, like, I just love that as authors, we can like create an experience and give hope to other people just by like
Yeah.
reading the experience of like other people going through something difficult and then
Yeah.
finding love or finding that hope and peace and coming out better where that
Mhm.
we live in kind of a crazy world now, so I feel like that really helps to have something to read that can give you that hope. And I just
Right.
love how your book did that and how you love having even like if it's a farmer or someone working,
Yeah.
if they can read something that gives them a little bit of excitement and hope,
Yeah.
um, then it's just perfect.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is everyone's like, oh, I read your book in one day. Like, no, stop. Like, you don't know how long that took me to write.
It
And if
took a
you read
long
the whole
time to
thing in
write.
one day, but it's
Yeah.
funny because that's what, my sister's like, oh, I started your book this morning and I'm already done. I'm like, oh, well, there
Uh,
that goes, but it's a good compliment.
yeah.
And it's not that they're like beach reads, but they kind of are easy enough,
Yeah.
to follow. I love reading like psychological thrillers and like
Mhm.
those I could never write that. Like
Oh,
I can't pull that off. Like the element of surprise would be zero. Like I can't do that. So
yeah.
I love reading every like genre, but like at the end of the day, my like little romance side like flourishes in my books. So yeah, it's people who read them too fast. Slow down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that is so
That's my
funny.
biggest pet peeve. It's like
If
I've spent so much time on this and now you're just done with it. So
if
oh,
only you could write a book that fast, right?
oh, I know. It's like how many times, and especially when I'm editing, it takes me like a week to plug through every, thing and like
Yes.
looking, and I'm like, oh, and
Oh,
then there it is. So yeah, I'm glad it's an easy, it's a enjoyable read that you don't want to put down. So
that's
that
true.
people like yell at me like, my kids, I don't know what my kids have been eating and my laundry room is overflowing, but I finished your books. I'm like, well, I'm sorry about all of that, but thank you.
I'm
So
glad you
I like
enjoyed
getting
it.
those kind of messages back where it's like, I
That
ignored
is
my
so
kids for
funny.
2 days and your book was great. So
That's good. And I guess then it was a little escape for them too. If
yeah.
they weren't paying attention to the laundry or the dishes, maybe that was a good thing a little bit.
Right. Yeah. No, that's how I feel too. I like to ignore all that stuff too and just write. So
Same. And then I come out of the writing bubble and I see the huge
Yikes.
disaster in the kitchen and I'm like, oh no.
I know, like my husband will come in the house like and be like, oh. I don't know what I was doing in here. I know what I was doing. He knows what I was doing. I was in the powder room. Definitely in the powder room.
So funny. Oh my word. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So what if you had any advice for people who wanted to do what you do and write books and publish them themselves, what advice would you have for them?
First, get it written. Like, just start writing. Like, just start writing it. It doesn't matter how you write it, or like if you're not following the traditional, footprints that other people do. Sometimes that makes it the best, is because it's unexpected and people don't, know what's going to happen. And any genre, anything, you can combine things. You can write about what you want. It can be a nonfiction about, it can be a cookbook or just a memoir. Sometimes that's the easiest, is just writing about yourself. But then those stories kind of come from there. So I use past things from like my college years in my writing too, like this little piece of what I learned along the way here or there, you pull that into your book. So I think everyone has something to share or tell. And even, children's books, or, oh, I can't do that. Middle grade books are, easier to write, maybe just because of your audience is a little bit more forgiving or whatever, or the adventure doesn't have to be as complex. And so I think it's just write it, like get it all down. And then you definitely need to have people in the writing world, writing community. Don't just give it to your grandma and your sisters, because they're not going to be honest with you. Get beta readers and to read through it and attack it and embrace how much you need to fix it and put in the work. But the first initial shock of getting it all written down, you have to start somewhere, so get it down. And then have other people who are familiar with writing and editing go through it. And I think an editor is very important. Some people, I read a lot of indie books, and I hopefully pride myself on having, perfect books. Time, or not the first, I can change them. But there's some books where I read and it's like, oh my gosh, I think you do need to invest a little bit of, if you're not the perfectionist or you're not the formatter creative type. I also think covers sell a book. They will sell a book, and the cover is probably the most important part. The font is just as important, which is so weird. But the font on the cover and the picture on the cover, that's just what happens. So that's the biggest thing, is make sure that if you're not that creative, that type of creative, ask for a little bit of help. So to make sure that that's up, because if the cover doesn't look good, people just won't pick it up. So, and you want it to look professional at the end of the day. So, and I think that's the bad rap that indie authors get, and indie publishing and stuff like that, is it's, not done correctly.
It can't really compete with that traditional market look,
Right. Yeah. And so I think that's where people just need to focus. I see a lot of those, and it's like, your cover, and then you read the blurb or the back cover, it's like okay, I flipped it over. But so I think that's a big thing, is making sure aspects of it are professionally done, or if you're creative, I do all my design myself because I can do it and I can see it that way. So I think that's the biggest thing, is, get your story and then have other people critique it is a huge thing. And by other people, I mean 5, and then fix it, and then have 5 more look at it, not just 1 or 2. Because I've gone through, some of my books have gone through 8 beta readers, just because I want that, I want to make sure
it really helps to have that fresh feedback, I a couple months ago, I had one team of beta readers going through my book, and now I have another team. So it's fresh eyes, so you're not just having the same beta readers read it again and again, because that's not really gonna really help you. I love that. I love that you mentioned that. So good. No,
I think it's totally doable. And I have people stop at the farmer's market and say, oh, I would love to, but it's super doable to publish it, but you have to, it takes a while, because my first book wasn't, you learn along the way. And so you do one at a time, and you learn, and then you can go back and change your back cover because you learned, something else along the way. But it's doable, and you just have to just write it first and then start asking for help. And it doesn't have to be paid help. I don't pay for my beta readers. I find them, organically, and just we swap stories, and I learn from editing theirs as well. So there's a lot to it, but it's doable.
Yeah,
So
totally.
you don't need a
That's
lot of time
wonderful.
either, you know, just like an hour here or there, and you can kind of hammer out a good manuscript, I guess.
Right, right. And then, so with editing, so
Yeah.
which edits do you end up having done on your manuscript? Is it like, do you do developmental and then a proof, or do you do the line, or do you have it all done, or
Yeah.
what do you do?
I'm very neat and particular. So like I write the whole thing and it's not really sloppy, but I think it's sloppy. Then I go back through it again and I cleaned up as best I can. There's always those words that, you know, you missed or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I have my beta readers just do anything they want to it. Like if you find spelling errors, if you find, you know, a plot hole here, or
Yeah.
you don't like this, or tell me what you're thinking. Do you think this girl's, you know, flighty, or, you know, annoying, or he's too, you know, macho? I don't know. Tell me anything. And then I take that, because like I said, I have like 5 people going through it. I can kind of see what needs to get changed. So I have them go through it. Then I read through it so many times. And then I do print it out on paper.
Okay.
And then like I actually just get a book because it's cheaper. And so I get a book.
That's a
and then
good
I
point.
go through it with a pen and I read through it. And usually I find I've got books back here that have like, where's my work? Yeah, now my shelf is gonna fall.
I
Like
love that. Oh my
you
goodness.
know, like it is attacked. Here's all like my writing notes everywhere, but like it is completely attacked. And that's how, I threw that other ones in my other room, just covered. Cause like I thought I was done. Like
Okay.
I thought I was done, and I was not. And those are just big things, because I have lots of other things just in pen.
Yeah.
Go through it again, and then go through it again. And then I have a couple other people who will just like proof it for me, and then I'll proof theirs. And usually you find more. And then once you hit publish, then you find more, because that's what happens, is the magic of hitting the publish button.
Yeah.
Change things around for you.
You end up seeing things.
Yeah, but I usually do all that myself, just because I can do it, and I'm so particular, and that's just like my personality though. So some people, and I have other people help me, but like I am the final eye on everything, and then the proofread, and then go hit publish. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. It's wonderful to kind of have your hands in everything like that. That's the thing I do love about indie publishing. You have that control and everything. So that's really lovely.
And the formatting, once you get it printed, you know, I can format it on my computer, and then once you get it printed, it's like, oh, that didn't work. And I have lots of different fonts inside my books, or like one of them has text message bubbles. So when that gets put into, you know, a print or whatever, sometimes those things don't behave, or the fonts are tricky, because you have to make sure that the font is a free public domain font. And then I'm really particular about my fonts, because I want it to look like a boy's handwriting. And, you know, sometimes the fonts that I download don't have like a comma. So then it's like, I can't use this font because I can't, you know, like I need
a comma.
It'll put a regular, you know, comma that you're typing your manuscript, but I want that font. And so fonts are like my favorite, but like worst enemy, because I know some of them have, you know, like 6 different fonts in there, because it's her handwriting or his handwriting, or typed up thing, you know. So that's always fun, and that's something with indie authors you can do. And that's what this one I had, like the light ships in. So that's the new one. That's the light from you. And my one friend, she's actually an author too, and she drew me like 6 light ships. And you know, she says, I don't know. I'm like, I'm using them all. They're all beautiful. So I have different fonts and stuff in there. And then, the light ship is part of the book.
I love it. Yeah.
I get to include that, and I get to include fonts that I want, instead of it just being, you know, from the publisher.
And that's part of that creativity, you know, too, inside, like you're making it more of an experience for your reader too, by including like the handwritten letters, you know, and the light ships and stuff like that. Plus that kind of teaches
little personal touches.
Right. And kind of teaches them and shows them what, you know, what those would have looked like from back then too.
Right. Well, and that was my son. He liked light ships. We got a book from that in the library, and I was like, oh, I can use this. And so that doesn't have anything to do with the beginning part of the book. And I needed him, you know, I needed something, and I was like, perfect, let's do it. So that took in a whole nother, you know, world of research to make sure that we're still in commission at that time, and where, you know, all of that. But that turned out super fun. And then I actually have, for my next books, I'm already kind of like planning things like that. And so I like to include like fun things. I have my playlist at the end, usually music, it's a big playlist at the end,
Awesome.
and yeah, stuff like that. So it's
Yeah,
kind of a fun little
I love
addition.
that. So, for anyone that would like to, be able to do research that is good research for, like,
Yeah,
say, a historical book,
yeah.
what advice would you give to them, like
Mhm.
that would help them, get the best research done so that their book
Right.
is, realistic for that time period?
Yeah, I think first of all, the easiest thing is just jump on the computer. But I did my research on The Light from You with the World War II stuff was all from the Library of Congress.
Oh,
And then
cool.
there was like a World War II like historical kind of society thing. And so I used that as my online stuff. But this was an audiobook that I listened to and I actually bought the book.
Cool.
It's called Lightning Sky. So it's like a true story about a US fighter pilot captured during World War II. And so I bought it
Mentioned that
because
one,
then
right?
I went through and like underlined all the things I needed. So
Cool.
I was surprised because I already had my story written and then I was listening to this audiobook and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this totally. And so I use this information and this comes into play a lot in my author's note because I can't
Right.
add, you don't want it so deep in the narrative.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of nonfiction books. That's another good thing. But I also read a lot of historical, like World War II era fiction books and romances. So you kind of can see what the balance is. You want it to
True.
kind of work. So I think reading a lot. And then if I know my grandma helped me a lot, but she wasn't in war. Her brother was, but he came back. But you kind of need, if there's a way
Wow.
to speak to someone. I had a lady who came up to me at the farmer's market and she was like, I grew up in Germany. She's like during like World War II. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
And she's like, yeah, she was like 4. She says, and we were just running around and then all that stuff was happening. And she's just like whatever about it.
My
I'm like, oh
word.
my gosh. Like,
It's
can I hug you? Like, are you kidding me right now? And then also like, the men who wear like their old grandpas, they're wearing their hats with like their insignia on it or
yeah.
whatever. I just like I will start to cry. Like I cannot. Like I just love that era so much.
Oh, me
It's so
too.
interesting. So firsthand accounts, obviously, I would have loved to pick that lady's
Yeah.
brain. Like, can we just sit and talk about you running around as like a 4-year-old in like
Rubble
Germany
and
as
stuff
these
like that. I
things
mean,
are
imagine
happening?
that. I can't,
Yeah.
like, wow.
She's like, it's just we were just running around. Like that's just what it was. Like,
It
where
was
was
their
your
life,
mother?
right? So weird when you
So
think of it.
lots of those things, they all kind of come together and little pieces here or there. And the internet's not a bad thing, but I think,
Yep.
even documentaries, I know there's lots of those
Yep.
even on Netflix, but the library has always been a big help for me. And I grab books and even if I only used one chapter out of it, I dig through it and okay, that's what I needed. So
Right.
figure out how, how things
That
were
is
back
so
then
cool.
and on the other side of the world. So yeah, it was,
Right.
yeah,
Oh my goodness, I love that.
yeah,
I feel like we click so much. Like I get goosebumps when you're talking about like the history and stuff. I'm like a huge
yeah,
history nut and love it so much. It's so funny when I travel with my husband, we go somewhere. He's huge into like architecture and architecture history
mhm,
and I'm like huge on, oh my gosh, the history, like the people and
yeah,
like what happened. And so he's always like, when we go a place, I'm like looking up at the buildings with him. I'm like, oh, it's pretty and stuff. He's like, look at this. It's so cool. And then we go
yeah,
someplace that's like historical. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the history and did it. And he's
yeah.
like, so funny, Devin. So
It's so
funny.
special. I feel like that, like lots of times, and even with the younger generation, I don't know. My dad was also always super into that because his brothers and all of his
Right.
neighbors and his cousins all went to Vietnam, and he was a couple years too young. And like he
Yeah.
wanted to go, he wanted to go. So like growing up, it was always
Mm,
watching war stuff with my dad, like watching, whatever and
right.
Band of Brothers, and he would read all these books. And so that's what I would take the book and read it, and it's all
Yeah.
kind of like my dad's stuff because he was left behind, thankfully. But like,
Yeah.
his brothers and like his little, country neighborhood of all of his cousins and stuff, they were all old enough. He had missed it by a
I
couple years.
know.
I wanted to go.
So
I wanted to go.
crazy.
I wanted to go. I'm like, oh, so
And it was a
that's
whole generation, like for my dad too, like he's the youngest of his siblings and his oldest brother got pulled
yeah,
into it and I remember hearing him saying that he'd mark off on the calendar until his brother would be coming home. He did come home, thankfully,
yeah.
but wow. Right.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. Like I always feel like, oh my gosh, like yeah, I like the whole like military wife thing. I could not do. I can't even stand when my husband's out late making hay. Like he'll be, out like he's just outside. He's always just outside. He doesn't go anywhere to work. He's here all day. And
Yeah.
I could never, ever, like I would go crazy like if my husband was far away. And like
Yeah.
one of our neighbors, another fellow farmer, their son right now is over in what is it?
Like,
Oh, Ukraine. I was thinking Uganda because it started with a U. In Ukraine.
gosh, the Ukraine
And
really.
like, yeah, because he came over and like,
Right.
yeah. And so it's just like, and he's like a special apps or something. And so
Wow.
I don't even know, like, cause like, it's just, yeah, I don't know how people do it because yeah, that breaks my heart.
So
And like one of my
hard.
sister's
Yeah.
friends, her husband was gone and she had a baby and like, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Then
like
they
I'm just
missed
like
out on
trying not
that
to
where,
cry.
yeah, those stories though, like, and
Yeah,
that's what I love what you're doing with your books. You're telling those stories.
yeah,
And they're very beautiful stories that need to be told because like not everyone experiences it.
right.
And also like I just love that like when you're at the farmer's market, like then that little lady that you met who was 4
Yeah.
and you were like, can I hug you? I just like, oh, that's so sweet.
And they didn't want to like, yeah, because you don't know like what to say. Like I just sit here and talk to me for a while because I want to know everything, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I was so shocked. I told my husband, I'm like, you'll never believe it. I was like, she was there and like, now she's here. So
Yeah.
it was good. But yeah, and World War II is so hard because there's so many different things
Right.
to
So
talk
many
about.
moving gears.
The reality is, and you don't want to include some things that are, for my readership as sweet romance,
Right.
historical fiction, you kind of have to play the game of,
Yeah.
just enough information, but
But not too
I'll
much
keep
of
you going
something.
and
Yeah.
you'll know where you are. You're definitely in Italy
Right.
here. And yeah, so
Yeah, I love it. I just loved your
yeah,
story so much, Ellison. So
thank you.
I'm excited to read more and it's going to be so great. So I'm excited for you. And I will
Yeah,
be
thanks.
also including your book. I just want to let you know in my email newsletter this coming
Okay.
week. So I'll be
Yeah.
including it in there for people to
Mhm.
click on the link and go buy it because I really did enjoy it. And I think I did leave a review on Goodreads, but I don't know if I did on Amazon yet. I'll go over there and do
Okay.
that.
To look. Yeah. I know that's the other thing I'm really bad at is like people read and like like I mean, yeah, write a review is great, but like I don't ever ask for them.
Right.
I don't want to like, hey, go, but like that's one thing that super helps authors.
Right.
So
It's super helpful
regardless
for
of
authors.
who you're
Yeah.
reading or whatever, a review, even just stars is helpful, but like,
Right.
yeah, even just a couple words counts as a review.
Yeah.
So it's
No, it's
always
so, so,
helpful.
so good. So yeah, I'll be able
Yeah.
to share, I'll hop over there and do that. So
Yeah, fun.
and everything. But and where can people buy your books from you?
So right now, they are on Amazon primarily. We Have July is on Barnes and Noble. It should be. It used to be on Target, and I think that kind of expired. So I
Oh,
think you can
okay.
do that there. There is a hardcover of We Have July, which is actually turned out super cool. So it's like
Cool.
really is I just thought that, or yeah, the light from you, I mean. And so
That's
that's
so
kind of
cool.
fun. But these are on Amazon as well. So they're
Nice.
all, whether you do the paperback or the hard copy, is on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise local people, there's a couple shops, or the library has some of them. So but yeah,
Sure.
Amazon.
Okay. And can they buy like signed ones from your website at all?
Oh yeah, yes, they can. I don't have a website like that. You can order the book, and then I have these little like nameplate stickers,
Cool.
so then you can peel it off. And that's what I do at the farmers market because I get really nervous signing in books. Like I don't want to mess it
Right.
up, and then now so, and I
Yeah.
will personalize them or whatever, but I have a link in my Instagram like bio, like my link tree. So you
Yeah.
can request if you want a signature. And then I also have, where are my bookmarks? There's a bookmark around here somewhere, but I have bookmarks. So then I send those and they have all my characters' names on there. Oh, here it is.
Oh,
All of my
wonderful.
girls are 5-letter R names. I
I
don't know how
love
much
that.
longer I'm going to be able to keep doing that, but there's 6 of them so far. I have a couple more ideas, but anyway, so then I throw in a bookmark and you can get that little signed nameplate is what I call it. And there's a link in my
Nice.
Instagram. Yeah, so I
Okay.
can sign it that
Perfect.
way.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be sure to include all that in the
Yep.
description, the video below. And so I enjoyed having you on here, and thank you so much for
Yeah,
chatting with
thanks.
me.